Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friends of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Brad.
And I'm your host, Sarah.
And happy May the 4th. Happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. All of the above. We made it, Sarah. Yet another Star Wars Day here on Friends of the Force. You see what we did there?
Well, yes. This is our Friends of the 4th celebration, our, yearly-ish celebration of friendship and fandom on the Star Wars holiday. And I'm just glad to be back in the chair chatting with you about Star Wars as friends.
Yeah.
I know that I'm really bringing I'm really laying down the theme here, but that's just the truth of our lives, really.
Yeah. And at the time of this podcast being released, it is the 4th of May with the Friends.
That's right.
Wow. Look at us.
Wow. Look at us. But actually, look at us.
What's even more impressive, though, is May 2026 marks the 7-year anniversary of this here podcast.
That's more impressive than May the 4th.
I think so.
Okay.
George Lucas created a multi-billion-dollar franchise, whatever.
Whatever.
We
but no, it is.
created this podcast that's been going for 7 years. That's almost
right.
It's almost a fifth of the lifetime of Star Wars that this podcast has existed.
It's basically like all the podcasts are of the Star Wars fandom are basically within the chronology and the history of Star Wars, by therefore being a part of this timeline that Star Wars is living in within our real world. That puts us on the same level of importance, all of us.
Wow.
As George Lucas.
dropping huge galaxy brain knowledge here.
That's exactly right. But yeah, we are about to celebrate the 7th anniversary of this podcast, which it's been weird to think about. Because when you and I met before this podcast started, feels like another lifetime, but it also feels like yesterday. And it's one of those very odd things, like the COVID timeline, where somebody goes, oh yeah, 2019. I'm like, yeah, that was yesterday. And then I have to like record scratch in my brain and be like, we are in a whole new era from that time period. But also a lot of what the world looked like in some ways, in 2019 is the same as it is now. So it's like, we're living in the Groundhog Day, the really painful, waking up screaming Groundhog Day version of
the horrors
all of this.
persist.
The horrors persist, yeah. So it's very interesting to be like, oh yeah, 2019 was yesterday, and then also be like, no, it's like actually a long time ago. We are closer to, the 10th anniversary of TROS than we are having seen it for the first time. Like these are these weird things of time. But I'm grateful to still be here yapping with you on a May the 4th all these years later.
I was eating wheat when this podcast started.
That's so true. You were.
Wow.
You don't
Look
eat
at me
wheat
now.
anymore.
Gluten-free lifestyle.
Guy who doesn't eat wheat anymore. Yeah.
Girl who's going to be okay meme, but it's just guy who's not going to eat wheat anymore and his tummy is okay.
Yeah, his tummy is much happier. Yeah, so much has changed. You don't eat wheat. And I don't know what else has changed.
I'm married. I have a home.
That's actually, yeah. No, I'm living in the same. I'm living in the same place. I'm also single still. I mean, nothing has changed there. So, everything looks the same for me, but it's very different for you. I did graduate college in that time frame.
But you didn't have a graduation.
That's correct.
I keep sending you the memes. They're like the Instagram reels where it's like nobody at all. People who graduated in like 2020 or whatever, and it was like blah blah blah. Did you know we didn't have a graduation? And I was like, your class is like you get to have experienced that.
I think I have earned the right to be annoying about that until the day that I die.
You have
in many decades
to be very
from
clear.
Now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
your class experienced like the most strangest time of your life possible. But hey, we all for the most part made it through. Not unscathed.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say that.
Not
like we're all
unscathed.
we're scathed to the we're scathe maxing, as one might say. The kids might say.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
here we are. Star Wars is very different. And that's kind of
Yeah.
the topic of today's show. Like Friends of the Fourth is really just like a cool hang on Star Wars Day. It's
Yeah.
like there's not really any specific topics we talk about. I think in the past we've done like our top 10 memories of the past year. Today we're just kind of it's just a purely cool hang. What does the last year look like for us? How are we thinking about Star Wars in this moment? What does the future of Star Wars look like? And, us as a podcast who has been very dedicated to several types of Star Wars material that have now come to a conclusion, we're also kind of finding our footing again as a podcast to think like, what do we want to cover? How do we want to cover those things? What are the things that we will continue to cover, right? And just
Mhm.
making sure that we're still finding the things that spark joy for us, but also bringing, meaningful podcasting to listeners and
Yeah.
continuing to keep this like a
And
cool, fun thing to listen to.
and having fun conversations between
Yeah,
ourselves. And we're not here to torture ourselves with conversations that we're like, oh, I don't want to be here right now. Nobody wants
right.
that, including us, most of all us. So,
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call us people who feel the need to talk about every single thing that comes out. But I also think we've found like a good balance now where we really like hone in on the things that do spark joy. And then we also
yeah.
use, our Patreon, I think more so now to do kind of more newsy type episodes or, trailer reactions, which we've been doing some
Mhm.
of that more recently. And I'm sure we'll have some fun instant reaction type of episodes dropping for some new movies coming out. So, there's
The tease
a
on
lot of
that, the
fun.
tease on that, you're really vague, but there's
I
only one
know.
movie that's coming out.
Yeah, I should say movie singular, but yeah, we're just finding ways to stay creative and amidst again the horrors that persist in our world. And I think that's also just a general struggle is like sometimes it's hard to be like, what is the point of any of this when the world's on fire? But at
Yeah.
the same time, it's like, we need to our brains can only handle so much atrocity. And, we need to still remain true to ourselves and our beliefs and also like keep that spark of joy alive and the joy of or the spark of happiness. It is kind of like the spark metaphor in Last Jedi of like the spark that will ignite the First Order. So I
Yeah.
always love that imagery of the spark and the lone candle in Star Wars, and I carry that with me each and every day.
Absolutely. And there's so much going on, and it's worthwhile to pay attention to all of these things and to know what's going on, to be present and active in our communities. And like I really encourage, and I say this just as much to myself as anybody else, like to know what's happening locally and also know what's happening in the world, and like where can we fit into that to make our community and our world a better place every day. And also how can we stay joyous and hopeful through the things that feel heavy and scary. And if that's an hour of Star Wars conversation, then so be it. Let's have an hour of Star Wars conversation.
Yeah,
So it's
let's do
finding a
that.
balance in order to keep going forward. um yeah, despite just like the way our attention is divided in a difficult world, and dimension and energy and resources and all of that jazz.
Yeah, totally. But hey,
Anyway,
we're talking Star Wars. Let's have an hour of just fun conversation, and let's start off with a fun fact, which is like
let's.
this Friends of the Fourth, and I guess this May 4th is coming at a unique time because we are at the halfway point between two different celebrations, which I think is just fun to call out because we're in this like weird period where Star Wars Celebration Japan happened just under or just over a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
and that was an incredible experience that we got to do. It's wild that we did it. I can't believe that happened.
Yeah.
That feels like a whole nother lifetime
Mm-hmm.
ago. And Star Wars Celebration Los Angeles, which is going to mark the 50th anniversary of Star Wars, is happening in just under a year. And tickets go on sale in 3 days this Wednesday at the time of this recording. So we are gearing up. We're prepped. We're ready. We got all of our cues ready to go. We will we will get the tickets. I hope.
God.
Uh,
God.
but it's so interesting that we're just in this middle point, and I gotta say I miss the celebration experience. I'm happy it's happening every other year, but I do miss it, and I do need it because it's always a nice shot of adrenaline, and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the interesting thing is like last time we were in the middle of it was 2024, but you were the only one that went to London in 2023. I didn't go. And so we're kind of at a point where we're on equal footing when it comes to celebrations past and future. And it's celebration's always an interesting time. It's changed over the years for sure. Like 2019 was my first celebration, and it's there was some alchemy. There was some alchemy in the air at 2019 celebration. The energy there was just cuckoo bananas. Um, but the real gift of celebration, other than the corporate face of Star Wars giving us all the exciting news, which you feel like you're at the center of it when that happens, which is exciting and fun. It's like just being with the Star Wars community, being among our friends that we only see at celebrations, and friends that we mainly know online and very otherwise get to see very rarely. And you and I live, halfway across the country from one another. So our opportunities to hang out in person are slim, and celebration is always, a space to hang out, which is great. And so I have a lot of gratitude just for the way that the Star Wars community can come together during a celebration time, and be generous with one another and be kind to one another. And I think with the way that our social media works nowadays, and we're all so far from each other on social media, it always used to feel like back in the TLJ era, that about a decade ago, it was the town square and we were all in it, whether we wanted to be or not. And that had its challenges and that had its gifts. And now it feels like in so many ways we are all so far from each other, because social media has segmented so much. And so it's always nice to get back in person, to have some real proximity to one another, friends, acquaintances, new friends, all these things. So that's what I appreciate most about celebration, and what I'm really excited to. I feel like there's a real possibility for the energy of the 50th anniversary of Star Wars to be similar to that of the energy of 2019's celebration, and honestly, that is the energy that I have been trying to chase since 2019.
I do think you made a couple of really good points there, and I want to tackle each of them. Your point about getting that energy of Chicago all over again. Like, again, that's where we met. We became friends, and then we quickly just hit it off. And here we are 7 years later. Wild.
Yeah.
I do think Los Angeles has the opportunity to, I don't know if rival Celebration Chicago again, because that was like on a new, in a new era of Star Wars with the Skywalker saga coming to an end and like Disney Plus launching. There's a lot of new things happening. But I also feel like Galaxy's Edge, yeah. But I also feel like this next one has the opportunity to rival that feeling, because we are in such a unique point in Star Wars' history. We're on you said it best before we started recording, we're on the precipice of a new era of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And that is really exciting. But also daunting in some ways, because it's like, what is next? What is there going to be for me? And I hope there are things that continue to be for me and for others, because we all have different we have different preferences and tastes in Star Wars. So, but your other point about like social media too, and I've definitely been feeling it, and I was sad posting about it last night, of just like I don't really know how to exist on Star Wars online fandom anymore. It's so interesting because for so long Twitter was that town square that you referenced, and we have basically lost that since the 2024 election, and it's everybody kind of scattered, the rebellion scattered. We're all on different planets and different hideouts, and you never really know where people went to or where people are primarily posting, or some people who just completely abandoned all forms of social media and we're just like, hey, if it's not Twitter, it's not anywhere, I'm just leaving. And more respect to that. But I've been primarily on Blue Sky over the last year, and I'll be honest, it's not really doing it for me. I'll post something and it gets like nobody's really like interacting anymore, and it's a weird feeling. And that was always the most joyous thing about Star Wars Twitter, was just like the interactions and meeting people. It's where I met my wife, so it's a pretty important place to me. But yeah, I definitely miss it, and it's not quite the same anymore, and I don't know if we'll ever get back there.
Yeah, and it's there's still a sense of like mourning it, even though it was challenging. I remember a lot of stress and grief that I felt like in the sequel era, being so close to such strongly negative opinions, that were totally opposite of mine. And I was like, well, why, yeah, all the feelings you feel about in that way. But being so far away from like any opinion is difficult. And I still kind of exist on Twitter. I don't really tweet that much anymore. I just am like reposting other people's stuff, but I've been on lock for like a year and a half now on my personal account, and so I don't really talk to anybody ever because nobody ever sees my stuff outside of my circle, but also I don't want people outside my circle to see my stuff. But nobody's there anymore, but I also don't really post elsewhere. And all the algorithms are weird. It's just, we're in a funky moment. So I don't know if we'll ever get that social internet back. And that's why it feels more important to be present when in-person opportunities of any scale like present themselves, like whether it be Joliet Star Wars Day in my local area, or fan screenings, or just going to the movies in general, or we have an opportunity to meet up with a friend who's going to be passing through my city over the weekend. Let's definitely grab dinner. Those things, they feel all the more important at this time.
Yeah, totally. And I again, I think Star Wars Celebration will give us something to look forward to, despite the fragmentation of social media and not really knowing where to exist or how to exist anymore in these spaces. And I think there is also just some benefit, I guess, from taking a step back to be always posting opinions. And there's been some joy in having my love of Star Wars be more private nowadays, and
Sure.
more constrained to this podcast and our thoughts here. Like, this is the time when I really get to talk about Star Wars with you, and
Yeah,
with an
absolutely.
audience, and that's exciting. Versus posting and having everything I post be very like willfully misconstrued on purpose, which is
Sure.
always just how every post is.
I like pancakes. Why do you hate waffles?
Yeah, I never said I hate waffles. Actually, I love both. But yeah, so it's so interesting how fandom has changed. But it makes me more grateful, despite the landscape of social media, that we have this space as a constant in a way.
Yeah.
So you listener out there, like, if you're still engaged and if you've fled Twitter to other venues, like, let us know where you're at. Say hello on those other platforms, and hopefully we're there. Leave a review. Let us know you're out there. Tell us what you love about the podcast, what you love about Star Wars. Like, definitely keep that interaction up, because I think it's fun to hear from folks.
Just add us on any platform with like something you're doing right now that you're enjoying with Star Wars. Just like no context, be like Star Wars Outlaws at Friends of the Force. Please just do that. I'll laugh. I'll have a really good laugh about it. No, but yeah, social media is so funny, but I'm really glad that we have this space, as friends and with our friends and listeners, and just continuing to talk about Star Wars, because it's fun. Like, Star Wars, the bottom line, and I'll say this a bunch for this episode, is like, Star Wars is more fun with friends. Yes, Star Wars has always been fun, when I was a kid and it was just me and my brother, but joining the fandom, and I'm looking at a tiny little picket right now, image picket of Kazuda Ziono, that a friend from Twitter that I met at Star Wars Celebration Japan last year gave me, who's also a K-pop friend, like gave me, and like, it's those sorts of things that feel really special. So anyway, precipice of a new era.
Yeah.
We are it's like, I'll get back to it, but we're, Star Wars Celebration 50, right? It's going to be like a lot of OT. It's going to be a lot of like the OG 77 energy. But I think that that's going to, I hope, be used as a catalyst for the next 50 years of Star Wars. And I think that is really exciting and interesting too. And there's a real undeniability about the originals too. You can't be grumpy in the face of like celebrating an anniversary. So at least not me, not so far. So yeah,
some people will be grumpy about it and be like, why are we celebrating OT nostalgia? And I'm like, 50 years is a pretty big deal. Like, we gotta pause.
Even me, sometimes I'm an OT nostalgia grump, like, for sure, but like, put a big round number on a t-shirt and I'm in.
Yeah. And let me say, some of the merch so far looks pretty dang good. And so I'm excited about that. But Yeah, it's so interesting. It's like being on a new precipice of Star Wars and in this next celebration. I was telling you before the podcast, and I don't know if this is a hot take or like other people are feeling the same way, but I think this is Star Wars' most important inflection point since Disney bought it.
Yeah.
Because a couple things going on. Like again, you mentioned 50 years of Star Wars. That's a big deal. Let's
Yep.
celebrate A New Hope, or as it's known, Star Wars. Let's celebrate the 50 years since Star Wars came out in theaters, and then let's look ahead. So there's that piece of it, like you said. Then there's the change in Lucasfilm leadership, right? Like Kathleen Kennedy
That's
is no
maybe
longer
the biggest piece here.
biggest
Like,
piece,
like
right?
actually say that with an exclamation point. Do that again with an exclamation point.
Kathleen Kennedy is no longer serving as president of Lucasfilm.
Mm-hmm.
She was handpicked by George to be his successor. He handed her the keys to the kingdom. She brought Star Wars back into the pop culture limelight. She's now gone, handing the keys now over to Dave Filoni and Lin-Wen Brennan as co-presidents. So now there's this idea of like, what does their version of the future look like? What do they want Star Wars to be? So there's a lot of uncertainty there. And then the last piece of all this is we are now officially in the month of the first Star Wars movie in 7 years since The Rise of Skywalker released in the pre-pandemic days, another lifetime ago, 2019. And, you know, we certainly have feelings about that movie, but I will say the best feelings I have right now is I just get to go sit and watch Star Wars in IMAX with my large popcorn and with my large soda. And I've just recently learned Sarah does not like buttered popcorn during movies, so that's going to be a weird experience when we see that movie together. I will more for me. I will say.
I want to be really clear. It's because I don't like having buttery fingers while I'm watching a movie. I'm here to focus. I'm here to lock in. And buttery fingers are a distraction. I love buttered popcorn, but it's tough. It's tough when I want to lock in. Okay. This is my rationale for that. But you kind of buried the lead. Is like we're about to go see our first Star Wars movie together.
And what I'm hearing is you're going to be locked in for the Mandalorian.
I'm going to be
and
locked
Grogu.
in.
That's incredible growth. That's incredible.
You're
growth.
trying to put me in a box there.
Yeah.
She's gonna be hype AF for Mandalorian and Grogu.
She's excited for Rada the Hutt. Get the Mabs out, boy.
I am not excited for Rada the Hutt.
You are though. I'm telling you.
I'm not.
Everybody's gonna go see. You remember how like we saw the Acolyte before we went to the premiere and we were all like Yord.
Well, yes.
You and I were buying the Yord stocks early, and everybody's like, "Oh, Yord!" And we were like, we were in on the ground floor of Yord, praising his.
If I end up being a Rada fan, I'm okay to get in on the 5th floor. Okay, I don't want to be on the ground floor of Rada because right now all the Rada stands sound crazy.
No, you need a founder's badge. You need a Rada.
I don't want a founder's badge. I don't want to be in this club. Sometimes the group chat is like. Sometimes the group chat says the darndest things about Rada, and I'm like, get me out, Mom, come pick me up. I'm scared. I live in fear of what you guys are gonna say next in the chat about Rada. I'm not here for Rada.
You will be, as Yoda says. You will.
But
be.
the point about Star Wars being more fun with friends is that we're gonna go see this movie together, and this is gonna be We've watched TV shows over FaceTime. We've had the opportunity, like a celebration, to sit together in the same room and watch that first episode of Andor 2. You know, we watched Obi-Wan together.
Yeah.
In your hotel room.
Yeah.
And I cried my eyes out. Like we've had good experiences like that, but we've never sat in a movie theater before and seen a Star Wars movie, a new Star Wars movie together. And I am so excited to do that. And I'm excited to do that with friends. And so that is what I am so excited about. Because I was telling you that like my first watch of, I think, every single movie in the sequel era, and including the standalones, has been alone. My second watch is then with friends. But my first watch has been alone. And I'm really excited for my first watch to be with friends. So yeah, I'm traveling to you. We're going to go see the movie. I am excited about a Star Wars movie, even if this movie isn't the one that I'm most excited about. We're on an adventure regardless. So,
yeah,
you know, I think that's a good thing.
But I think that's the way to do it is like even if you're not excited, I think getting to experience it with others, even if it's not like your biggest cup of tea, I think you're going to be more prone to find the things that you do like in the movie just because you had a good time with friends. And I think that like definitely helps. That definitely helps. I know that definitely helped people back in 2019 when they were, seeing the Rise of Skywalker together and expecting certain outcomes, and those outcomes didn't happen. But like, hey, we were all in it together, and that was the joy of it, I guess.
Then imagine being me, and at that time being a leaks reader and being like, oh, that's not true, and then me being alone in the theater and watching every single one of those things beat by beat come true, and my eyes just going wide and my mouth being on the ground and being like, what's happening? What's happening?
So,
yeah, I think what's exciting about like going to see it with friends too is like, yes, we can maybe find all the things that we had fun in it, but that car ride home, whether we liked the movie or didn't like the movie, will be a fun and silly discussion. We're either going to be speculating and being like, did you notice that? Did you notice that? Did you notice that? Or being like, oh my gosh, what did we just sit through? And either way, that's a good time.
Right. Like, what do they mean? Rada the Hutt will return in Avengers Doomsday. What do they mean?
That's right.
What does that mean?
So like, I'm really, really excited about that. And that is the start of a new era of that for us. And whether we go see Starfighter together or not, like we are entering a new era of Star Wars film. Mm-hmm. We at least have 2 that we know are happening that we've seen footage of that are going to come out, this one and Starfighter. And that's exciting. So I'm grateful for that era of Star Wars to return.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and who knows? Maybe at the time this episode is out and it's May the 4th, all of the listeners are like, we are watching the Starfighter trailer right now.
Listen, you proposed that to me on text earlier today, and I said that would be crazy. So if that happens tomorrow, Monday, May 4th, it's not Monday, May 4th when we're recording this, because we're employed people who have to work on Monday, May 4th, unfortunately. That's gonna be cuckoo bananas. Can I just say that? Be like, hey, you have a movie coming out in 3 weeks. Here's the movie coming out in 1 year.
I mean, it'd be great. But I mean, I
we're
just
really
want to
excited.
I want to see footage
really
from
excited about
Starfighter.
Yeah, we're really excited about the potential for speed.
Yeah, bring speed back to Star Wars. Yeah, I'm excited. And you're going to see Mando and Grogu, the 25-minute fan event tomorrow, where you'll get to see 25 minutes from the film. And we're going to do a little debrief of that on Patreon, as well as all the news from the day tomorrow. So if you're not a patron, definitely check us out over there and consider joining, because we will have some thoughts tomorrow, I'm sure.
Yeah, and that is pending me getting into that, because that was a free ticket, and they definitely overbook it.
Yeah.
And it did all sell out across the US or whatever. So I will be doing my best to get there on time. To see this, because who knows? Okay, I know I've been a little bit of a Mando and Grogu skeptic because I'm not a huge Mandoverse person, but if this 25 minutes, if I get in and I see it and it changes me, you'll hear about it. If I become the biggest Mando and Grogu stan, it could happen. It could. Listen, I am open to a world of possibilities here. I'm optimistic.
Movie could change your life like Last Jedi. You just don't know. You don't know.
I don't know if anything will change my life like Last Jedi. She is singular in my heart, but anything could happen. Anything could happen, and I am open to the possibility of my life being changed.
Yeah, for better or worse.
I hopefully not worse. We got a lot going on. Okay, life is pretty stressful as is. So, I know it might be sounding like I'm sounding sarcastic. I'm not. I'm very sincere about this. I am open to my heart and mind being changed about this movie. And for me to be like, Mando and Grogu, number 3 favorite Star Wars movie. Because I'm sorry, it's not gonna be number 1 and 2, but it could be 3.
Can I just say, I'm all in on the Babu Fricks.
On the little Anzellans?
I'm all in.
Can we talk about for a second, everybody on socials who's gotten an invite to the premiere, they're like, I had a call with Swagman and then the Anzellans showed up and invited me to the premiere. And I think that was so cute, actually.
Oh my gosh.
I think that was adorable.
Yeah. I'm so happy for everybody who got to experience that. I'm jealous I didn't get a Zoom call from the Anzellans, because that would be so entertaining to hear them go, hey, I just want to hear it. But yeah, that's incredible. And I really love that they're leaning into the Anzellan of it all, because from some of the trailers and like TV spots that have been coming out, it seems like the Anzellans and Grogu like go on a little mini side adventure, like a Rose Finn on Canto Bight type of like side adventure that we need to do in order to get back to the main plot. And I
Right.
love that. I love that they're getting like a B plot side
A
adventure
quest, a
together.
little
Yeah.
quest.
Yeah. Like,
And
can Grogu do it on his own without Mando's help?
yeah, yeah. And then he's gonna pull the little pauldron as his chest plate tight
Yeah.
and be like, I'm strong and brave. And I'm gonna be like, that's the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life. Um, but yeah, I thought that invite method was so cute. But I can't imagine what was everybody thinking when they were like, "Hey, Swagman's like, hey bestie, want to get on a call with you Friday at 2 p.m." And you're like, what is Swagman calling me about? Are you gonna give me a cease and desist? Like, what's the situation? And then you get an invite to the premiere. I thought that like what was the premise for this call? I wonder. We should DM somebody who got the invite. I'm curious. Um, but I thought that was really fun. And I just am I'm glad to be optimistic right now. You know, even if it's not going to be maybe if it's not my thing, like I'm still we're in a time. We're in a time. We might as well just go with the flow.
Well, I guess before we look forward, I guess at maybe the next year and beyond of Star Wars, I want to take some time to reflect on the past 365 days as a Star Wars fan. And I know we've talked about, the changing social media landscape. That's definitely been very impactful in our experiences as Star Wars fans. But there has been like a lot of good in the last year. And I think first and foremost, the top two things that come to mind are the conclusion of Andor. And not only that, but the 10-year arc of Rogue One, which is a film that means a lot to both of us. And we're now in the 10th year anniversary of that film. Funny enough, that's wild. So we'll
Crap.
probably do something on that later in the year. But also the end of the High Republic, which has dominated our lives since February 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And we got that big reveal of what Project Luminous was, and the artwork and the time period details, and what was to come. And we are still down a full year away from the books coming out. But those two things ending were such a dominant force in our podcasting career, and
And
we
also
spent
just
so many
as
hours.
friends.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Like, we spent so many hours in Facebook Messenger talking about Andor and High Republic and podcasting about those two things. And now that it's over, I have been definitely reeling from that a little bit. And the high of those two things is definitely starting to come down. And so that's where I'm like, I need my next Star Wars hit. I need like the next thing that's gonna grab me by the arm and just take me for a ride. And I'm hoping it's something that's coming soon.
it's it's so interesting because we have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours thinking about like the High Republic specifically, you know. I know that we've spent at least 100 hours recording on the High Republic, and that means we've spent hundreds of hours behind the scenes reading those books, discussing them just amongst ourselves, writing outlines for our episodes, and all of the content that got left on the cutting room floor within our conversations. Like that's taken up so much of our lives, and then Andor as well. Um, something we're so passionate about. Have those things come to an end within like a month and a half of each other or something crazy like that is like, well, okay, what's next? And you're rocking back and forth and twiddling your thumbs. And I feel a lot of gratitude for what we got in those stories. Um, and there's also a sense of loss now that we're past it. And we're on the precipice of a new era too. I think as we've mentioned so far in this episode, is like we're trying to find our footing again. We're trying to figure out what our next big thing is, that will spark that same level of joy for us. Uh, and yeah, it's fascinating for those two things which dominated so much of our minds and hearts over the past 5-6 years to be done at this point.
Yeah. And we topped off the Andor era, not only going to Japan last year, but coming back. And within a couple of weeks, we're taking 2 different trips out to Lucasfilm in San Francisco, which was just completely unexpected. And I'm so beyond like honored and like humbled to have been a part of those experiences. Like, first getting to go see Andor, the series finale, and then Rogue One at the Lucasfilm headquarters theater with like a bunch of other fans at a fan event, but then a week or two later coming back to do in-person interviews with Tony Gilroy, Margaret Pfeiffer from Skywalker Sound, and Alan Tudyk, which was just incredible. And I can't believe it happened. So there's also like I tell this to you all the time. I'm like, I think I peaked. I think that was my peak. Like, how do you top getting to do that trip and visit ILM and go on the mocap stage? And we got to go to the hideout. Like, there's a lot of really cool things that happened, with to us and alongside other fellow podcasters. And it was just such a unique, I don't know. I'm always like indebted to that experience. And, I don't know if anything will ever come close to it again. And like the experience of Andor and just getting to watch Andor and talk about it. And that was a Star Wars I've been waiting my whole life for.
Yeah, I mean Andor is the Star Wars I think we've both been waiting our whole lives for. In terms of subject matter and just the level of depth and realness that the weightiness that those shows gave, I think, to the Star Wars universe is something we're always seeking. Like, yes, Star Wars can be fun and silly, and I'm glad for those things as well. But there's something I think really special when it can really dig into what its themes are actually saying and how they apply to real people, not just the hero of the whole galaxy. And I agree that those experiences, the opportunities that we were afforded last year through Andor, I have immense gratitude for those opportunities. And I feel like I learned a lot as somebody who makes a podcast. I feel like I learned a lot in the opportunity to do those things, and also just had a lot of fun. And it's not an experience that everybody gets to have, and I'm incredibly aware of that. And I still don't know why it happened to us, but thank you. And I hope that as the years go on, more people will get the opportunity to have those sorts of experiences as well. But to your point, when you said, I think I peaked there, and I think that might be okay. You know what I'm saying? Like,
not a bad place to peak.
Okay.
Yeah, valid peak.
I think as I think about the life I've lived as a Star Wars fan, whether that be my personal fandom in childhood or getting into the fandom a decade ago with Rogue One. That's when I got into the social fandom. And I think about some of the highs that I've had as a fan. And I think we're always chasing those things. Like I said, I'm still chasing the energy that 2019's celebration in Chicago gave us. And I think we can always chase that opportunity again, but it's never really gone, Star Wars thing, it's never really gone. That experience that we had is one that's always going to be in our memory. And I think that is, just a really special thing within the lifeline of Star Wars is like, in 2019, me would have never expected to be doing a podcast with you, to have gone to as many celebrations as we had and had the opportunities at those celebrations, to meet as many people as we have had the opportunity to meet, as friends, and within our community and people we've interviewed, all of that. And we would have never anticipated this opportunity. So I don't think we can anticipate the next big thing, whether that be in our personal fandom, our enjoyment of Star Wars, our opportunities on the podcast. And so, I think there will always be peaks, and then maybe something will come along and be a higher peak, I don't know if we've climbed Everest yet.
No, definitely not. And I think it would be foolish of Lucasfilm to not recognize the critical and fan success of Andor and try to replicate that again at some point. And nothing will ever quite be Andor. I keep saying it. Not everything has to be Andor. There should be room for campiness in Star Wars. It should still be good campiness. It should still be quality and have a lot of care put into it, production wise and writing wise and directing wise. Like those things, like camp does not mean bad quality. Like we should never sacrifice quality for camp. But there should be room for camp. There should be room for maturity. There should be room for Andor, the next Andor at some point down the road. And I can't wait until we get to experience that as fans again at some point. And the next great thing that we love may not be Andor, the Andor equivalent. It might be something that is campy, right? So that's the great thing about Star Wars is you just never know when it's going to hit you at a time in your life when you need it the most. And when it does, it feels great.
Yes, absolutely. So Yeah, we mourn or we grieve the experience that we've had, but we also have no idea what's in store for us, which is kind of the thing we're talking about both personally and with Star Wars, which is exciting and daunting and all of the above. Um, we got also we talked you talked about Rogue One. We also had ROTS 20 last year and TFA 10. Both I think were a little under celebrated.
Agreed.
Um,
Agreed.
within the capital B brand of Star Wars, but also maybe with a little bit within the fandom, but that maybe also be a symptom of the stratification of the online space, right? So I'm hoping that us all coming together for the 50th will not just be a celebration of Star Wars 77, right? But a celebration of the technology that came out, through that film and everything that's brought along with it. So I'm hoping that'll be kind of a celebration of everything Star Wars.
Yeah, I was surprised we didn't get The Force Awakens re-released in theaters. I am very happy we got ROTS released in theaters, as well as like a very beautiful Matt Ferguson print that I bought immediately because I was so excited about it. Yep. But I think next year, Sarah, we might have 2 trips in the cards. One being A New Hope when it gets its IMAX re-release, which is confirmed, I believe. IMAX re-release.
Yeah.
The month of your birthday. As well as IMAX Starfighter when that comes out as well, which I think just recently also had confirmation of an IMAX release. So we're getting some great quality stuff.
What I'm hearing is Brad takes the 13-hour Amtrak train from Syracuse to Chicago to come see me for my birthday. Star Wars in the movie theaters IMAX. Think about it.
I will do that. I will.
Brad and Alex on the train.
If the timing works out, I will come to Chicago for your birthday. I'm not making you travel on your birthday, obviously. But maybe
why
maybe
am I coming
go there?
To you in your cat infested house?
Because you haven't seen my house yet.
For my birthday.
Nice. It's so nice here.
I know. Your house is lovely and your cats are also lovely. I'm just allergic to them.
We're going to be on the porch most of the time. Let me be clear. We will be on the porch with our newly acquired Mandalorian and Grogu coloring book.
Yes,
courtesy of Random House Worlds.
I am excited. I think we're going to have to buy out like the stock of green colored pencils to color all the Grogus.
Yeah.
Like actually, I think that's going to be our debrief is like us sitting around the table all with a different coloring sheet in our hand. Like just discussing the movie. I'm actually really looking forward to it.
Me too. With the beer in hand for sure, for myself at least. And I'm
we
very
can make
excited.
Some mixed drinks for me, please.
And then we will, hopefully we'll have like the Star Wars Legacy Advanced reader's copy by then.
Oh gosh.
And we'll read that out loud to each other and have a little story time.
Well, that or we can catch up on any books that we've missed. Because
true.
We've gotten some books that we've read the vast majority of like all the canon books that have released since we've been doing this podcast. We've read almost all of them, but there's a handful that we have not been able to get to because the schedules are live or interest at the time that they were coming out. There were other Star Wars things we were more interested in, so having to choose a little bit there. But that being said, there have been a lot of books that we have enjoyed over the past year, and I think that books still remain one of the things that, regardless of what it is, was something we're always going to be at least a little bit interested in.
Oh,
because
totally.
We just love to read. We just love to read on this podcast.
Yeah. And I had a lot of anxiety coming out of the High Republic. I mean, we both did of what is Star Wars books going to look like. And I'm glad it has not disappointed. Like the High Republic came and went. It was amazing. But let me tell you, that foot is not coming off the gas for Star Wars publishing.
Which I'm so grateful for, because like Star Wars books are also what got me into the fandom 10 years ago. What was my first book was Bloodline. And then I read Lost Stars and I was like, crap, this is great. And then I was reading a Star Wars book all the time for a year and a half before I like burnt out. And I was like, I need to take maybe a month pause here before we pick up another Star Wars book. But I read so many, but like that still remains such a place of joy. And if you listen to like our conversation with Mike Chen on Low Red Moon earlier this year, that was such an exciting read for both of us. And I didn't even play Outlaws. I was like, I am so in on this. This book is so good. And we both enjoyed The Mask of Fear last year a lot, as our GOAT, Alexander Freed, coming out with that book, and which is of course like so in our niche. Like, we're getting a Rebecca Roanhorse sequel later this year. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm
Yeah,
so excited about that.
I wanted to ask you, like, what has been your favorite Star Wars book of the past year?
Oh. I think it like has to be The Mask of Fear, because like reading a new Alexander Freed novel is like a gift bestowed from the gods, you know? And the promise of this trilogy is also just kind of like the angels singing, you know, in the Star Wars. I'm like, oh, it's for you, is how I feel about it. But yeah, The Mask of Fear is probably my number one. But like, there's, oh gosh, there's also The End of the High Republic, and there's some really good stuff in there. I feel like now that the High Republic is over, like the High Republic is largely one entity, and I can't like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We've read like 30 High Republic books over the past 5 years, and it's not that they've all blended together because they're pretty distinct, but I feel like I have to kind of treat the High Republic as one entity because it's now the story is complete in its way.
And it's just easier. It's easier
It
than
is
diving into
also
the
easier to
phases
be
and
like,
waves and
okay, so
yada.
I'm talking about Temptation of the Force here, but also I'm thinking about Race to Crash Point Tower. But when you think about Path of Vengeance, you know, you're like trying to put all the titles in order. And I'm really good at getting some of those YA titles and being like, no, that's book 2 and not book 3. And I'm like, my bad. But yeah, those are great. Those are exciting. But also like Low Red Moon, I loved that book. I loved it so much.
Agreed.
It was such a delight at the beginning of this year. So yeah, I don't really think there's been, I loved Sanctuary. That was such like here's a long Bad Batch episode, have fun. And I did have fun. And then there's that one chapter where a certain someone shows up and I was like, oh, mind blown. It was so good.
Yeah.
It was really well done.
I have to agree that Mask of Fear is definitely my favorite. And that's just because it feels like the natural offspring of Andor in book form. But Low Red Moon, I agreed. I think that was a dark horse for me. Not that I had any doubts in Mike Chen, but just generally speaking, video game tie-in novels are typically like hit or miss for me. And this was one where I was just like, this is so great. And that even if you don't think of it as a video game tie-in novel, it's just a great standalone Star Wars book. And
100%.
you don't have to play Outlaws to understand the story. And it was just so well crafted. And Mike is just a absolute masterclass of Star Wars book writing. So I'm so excited we got more from him. I will say I have not had the chance to read Crystal Crown. But Wayseeker was pretty good, and I'm glad we got some Acolyte tie-ins. Unfortunately, I think we were hoping for more, but I think the Acolyte boat has come and gone, unfortunately, at least for now. I don't suspect it may ever return to the port, but
the Ryan Johnson trilogy, I refuse to believe it's really dead.
Yeah, I kind of have to for my own sanity, and then if it ever does happen, I'll be completely elated to experience more of that. But like at the very least, I think we should continue the story of Chimere and May and Osha in book form somehow. But I digress.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Can I say something? Great. Thank you so much. There are 2 of us on this podcast. I hope I can say something.
Go ahead.
The thing I would like to say is I saw Rogue One and immediately was like, I need the Cassian book. I need the Cassian book right now. Right now. And then like 8 years later, we got the best TV show of all time. And in this case, we got The Acolyte, and The Acolyte's story was finished by, you know, the checkbook too soon. They said, we're not writing another check for that, actually. And I want more of their story. And I know that there are so many Star Wars fans who want more of their story. And I think there is more story to tell. I like really think this. Leslie Headland, she was really cooking. Okay. She was really cooking. She had, I could see, I'm not in her mind, but I could see seasons 2 and 3 in her mind, you know? And so maybe in a handful of years from now, we're going to get like the most kick-ass book that's ever been written, or maybe we get another show or a film. I really refuse to believe that it's dead. Because Andor happened. And I don't know. That's the thought I'm going with right now is like I remember coming out of the movie and being like, I need the book. I need the additional story right now. And then we ended up getting the additional story in a way that we couldn't even have imagined at that point in time. And so I'm hoping that that is the case for Acolyte. That would be so
Yeah,
exciting.
I would love that. I think I just my number one overall fear, and this ties in also to the future of the Star Wars franchise, is just costs of everything and
Well,
Hollywood's
yeah.
appetite to take risks and to not take risks because the industry is so risk averse right now. It's playing it safe. We're seeing, Toy Story 5 coming out, which let me be clear, I'm so excited for Toy Story 5. It's going to be great. The iPad, the lily pad, like why has that not happened yet?
You
Peak cinema
see,
incoming. But like we're getting, Frozen 3 and Incredibles 3. Like we're in an era of let's put old movies back in theaters because people want to go see those, and let's like rehash old TV shows and movies and like do reboots of them. And I just don't, unfortunately I don't think we're in the world of like saving Clone Wars for another season and bringing back the Acolyte, and the fact that we got Andor and Tony Gilroy could go spend $700 million to make a TV show is just like unheard of and will never ever happen ever again. Like it just factually will not happen again at that level of spending. And it's incredible that we got Andor through the writer strikes and the actor strikes and
hmm
through the changing industry. Now we have new Disney leadership as well. So there's just like so many things
New
happening.
Disney leadership,
The
new
rise of
Lucasfilm
AI
leadership.
and trying to combat that
Yeah.
in the industry as well. So it's just a lot of like uncertainty in Hollywood and like what the future looks like. And I think, if I think 10 or 15 years ago, Acolyte would have been a surefire bet for many, many seasons.
Right. That all being said, I reject your cynicism.
I'm such a cynic. I'm such a cynic. I'm like, listen,
No,
Star Wars
I know
wanted to
what
be
you're
TV
saying.
for the last 7 years, and that's why we're now getting our first movie after 7 years. Is they want to be the movie
Right.
franchise again. They want the box office numbers. They want to dominate Memorial Day weekends for both of this and Starfighter next year, Memorial Day weekends. Like they want to have that May slot, and they want to make boatloads of money with Star Wars.
I'm like really, I don't know how I feel about the Mace slot. Obviously the last time we had the Mace slot, it came right off the heels of The Last Jedi, which, as we know is our goat, but like did cause some conversation, loud and up, uh what's the word? Loud and butting heads, I guess, like, some oppositional conversation, some arguments, if you will, argumentative kind of landscape there. And then it felt like, well, maybe it was too close. But to me, as somebody whose first Star Wars film experiences were the sequels coming out in December, December still feels like the time because then it's like, all right, well, I just finished the new Star Wars movie and now my stocking is full of Star Wars toys, Like, I don't know. That feels like a missed opportunity to not stick in that spot. But I understand the desire to go back to May, considering May is the OG date, if you will.
May the 4th too.
May the
It's kind of
4th.
just the month of ramping up Star Wars, and it feels good. Feels good. At least as me as a prequel kid who saw the prequels in theaters during May, it feels like a return to form in some ways. Going into the summer, like with Roths, oh, that was such a good time. Such a good time.
But if it's a dud, if it's not hitting like the way it's going to be hitting, your summer's going to be boring.
Yeah. Which hey,
You know?
we could rehash box office numbers. I like paying attention to box
you
office numbers. I don't make it my whole personality. I know Mando's tracking like lower than Solo, which is unfortunate, but I think at the end of the day, like if you enjoy a movie, that stuff does not matter. Like
No, I
enjoy the
agree.
movie, but it definitely does have influence over what gets made and what does not get made, and there's no
Sure.
denying that, but we as fans should not really pay attention to any of that. The CEOs do, the C-suite does. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
the shareholders do,
Yeah.
and that's why we're not getting Acolyte
And
at this
that's
current time, but
and books are cheaper than films.
Yes.
So let's write a banger book about the Acolyte
yeah. But
in
hey,
3 or 4 years time.
we had
And I will buy 2 copies, not just
Agreed.
1, 2. You'll have 2
Agreed.
sales.
But hey, we had a pretty good send off. If this is the end of Star Wars TV for at least some time, we had a good send off. We had Skeleton Crew last year. We had a great Lego special and Rebuild the Galaxy Pieces of the Past. We had Visions Volume 3, which we know Ninth Jedi as a series is coming at some point in the near future. So hopefully we'll get an announcement for that tomorrow. And just the 20th anniversary of Lucasfilm Animation, the fact that we've had 20 years now. We're about to watch the finale of Maul tomorrow, and we've come a long way from the 2D days of Gendy Tartakovsky to the amazing paintbrush style of Darth Maul Shadow Lord, and there's a lot to be happy about in what they've been able to do over these past 7 years. Not everything was a hit. Some might argue that it diluted the Star Wars franchise somewhat and made it feel less special, and maybe that's affecting some of the buzz around Mando and Grogu. But I think if it gave us that Andor, 2 seasons of Andor, and it gave us Visions, and it gave us that first season of Mandalorian, which I think is still the best, the goat of the series, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely positives and negatives. And I think we've gotten some incredible moments out of Star Wars TV and in so many across series that feel like truly quintessential Star Wars, and I feel grateful for that. And I think that Star Wars can be all things if it wants to be all things. It's just like, how do you allocate the resources and the story in a way that it makes sense to continue different corners of the universe in different ways. So we'll see. Again, we're on the precipice of new leadership, both creatively and who holds the purse. And so who knows?
I guess this kind of leads us into what's next for Star Wars. We've looked at the past year, but now going forward, I think there still is a lot of uncertainty. Star Wars Celebration next year will be the most telling of any celebration because it's going to be Dave Filoni's first as president with Lin-Manuel Brennan. So I expect them both to come out at the showcase. I don't know if they're going to give us any type of roadmap, because we know in the past when we've been given a roadmap, it hasn't always come to fruition. And, there is definitely some probably hesitation there to do that again. But also
Right.
they got to come out with something to say, like, what is the future of Star Wars going to be? Like, what is the focus? Like, what is the movie after Starfighter? And we know Simon Kinberg's trilogy seems to be the only surefire thing that's happening. I know he's like wrapping up or has wrapped up some script treatments pretty recently based on an interview with Kathleen Kennedy back a couple months ago. She said he was finishing up in March.
Yeah.
So, how does that tie into Starfighter and maybe if we're continuing the story of Rey and maybe Finn and Poe, right? Like, I think there's a reality in which some of the sequel trilogy does continue in some fashion, because it did open up the doors for Star Wars to continue. And so we need to revisit that, because it was the future for quite some time and we shouldn't put it in the past.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I think that to continue to ignore the sequel timeline will be a detriment to Star Wars in the long run, considering there is a whole generation of people who grew up with the sequels, or who have grown up with the sequels over the past decade and are really invested in the sequels in the same way that you and I grew up with the prequels and now are getting the, over the past 8 years or so, prequel renaissance. And I think that timeline and that story has to come around, because there's also a lot there. There is a lot there, regardless of whether you like Tross or not and the outcome of that. Like, there's a lot in the galaxy, both before TFA and after Tross, that you can pull on and create something new with. And I think that there's I hope that there are creatives at Lucasfilm who are really digging into those ideas and thinking about what the world could look like. So it's exciting. It's interesting. And I just hope that those things will be the corners of the universe that I'm also interested in.
Let me just say, if I ever get to see the day where Rey and Finn are on screen together with lightsabers, I'll be pretty damn happy.
Okay.
I think that'd be cool. I want to see it. Let's make it happen. Give them a paycheck.
I mean, I support employment.
Yeah. And then Poe, obviously, too. Like, I'm not going to neglect Poe. I want to see Poe in the Resistance. Like, the prospect of a world post somehow Palpatine returned. What does that look like? I'm sure just like when the second Death Star fell over Endor and we had all of the shattered empire, imperial remnants springing up. Like I'm sure the same thing is going to happen with the First Order. Like it's a cycle, it repeats itself, and war never is truly over. So let's explore that a little bit.
I think that'll be really interesting to see how far Mando and Grogu goes in that direction within the context of the timeline, right? Like we know that they're bounty hunting bad people. Essentially, that's like the
For the
premise of this
Republic,
movie
yeah, like the
for the
imperial
Republic.
warlords, yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder if the film will really tap into that at all, or whether that will stay kind of surface level. And I hope it taps into that a little bit and like the implications of that, the morality, and also why the Republic is choosing this, you know, as the path forward. And I think we've gotten like glimpses of that, and those have always been incredibly interesting. And so that I totally see that being a thread that they could pull on in the future, and one that would be really, it can be like meaty without being Andor, you know, if they don't want to do Andor again in that same way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was chapter 23. I don't remember which
Of
chapter it was of season 3 of The Mandalorian. The one episode
oh
with Katie O'Brien.
yeah, yeah.
I think that's still some of I think it's chapter 19, which is the convert.
Oh,
And
okay, yeah, yeah.
I think that's some of like the best of season 3 of Mando is when we started to explore like what does it look like as we try to reintegrate the Imperial loyalists into the New Republic, and there's programs for reconciliation, and we expanded a bit on that from Alphabet Squadron. And so like I think that's really really cool, and I would love to see, yeah, I agree. I want to see the movie really just focus on the New Republic and the Empire. And if that's what Mando's role is going forward, then interesting. I'm curious. You got my interest peaked.
Yeah, I think that like I feel like for some reason like the politics of Star Wars is still like a, whoa, you like the politics of Star Wars, even though like Andor is all of that and it's like spectacular stuff. But I don't know if, I think people, a certain segment of maybe casual fans or whatever still think about, you know, taxation of the trade routes or whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
I think that the idea of nation building, right, which is what's happening both in this era that Mando and Grogu is taking place in, and also that our post Tross stuff will take place in the future. It's like there's a political lens to you could focus on that could be really interesting and dynamic and has a lot of interpersonal conflict and a lot of focuses on the themes that Star Wars has always focused on. Like I think that's all there. But you can also do like the truly personal, like what does it feel like to rebuild after war in a you know, a very kind of small setting. You can do you know, conflicts between people, like they're all of these are all there. I think all the themes and ideas are there. And you can still do the Force and the lightsabers and the Jedi and the Sith and this and that. And I think the thing with where we are in Tross is like, or after Tross is like, we've got Rey. She's got the texts, and she can now rebuild the Jedi or a new version of the Jedi in a way that is maybe more just, less hubris. Considering she heard the word hubris twice in The Last Jedi. Will I ever shut up about that specific note? No.
Never.
Mm-mm. And you know, I think there's so much possibility, whether it be the politics and the interpersonal relations, the galactic relationships between planets and people and factions and underworld versus lawfulness and all these sorts of things, and the Force. Like Star Wars is all of these things.
Yeah. And it should be all of these things as well. Like it can be all of it.
100%.
And I think if Mando's not gonna really take a deep dive into that side of Star Wars, again, it's been very surface level. We've gotten glimpses of it. Like Mon Mothma has shown up in Ahsoka. It's gotta happen. It's gotta happen at some point. Like we need to investigate the rebuilding of a democracy in a post rebels versus Empire world. Like you could honestly just have a companion sequel series to Andor, call it whatever you want to call it. Have Mon Mothma just be as much of a focal figure as she was in the Andor series, Like, imagine if we got the same quality, same writing, same production design, same acting level that we did in Andor, but it's post Return of the Jedi, and it's
See, I'm
Mothma,
in.
it's other new senators, it's Imperial spies in the background rebuilding the First Order. There's Hux. Like, Mando seems like it kind of wants to be that at times, but never fully commit to it. And so I just want
Mm,
that TV show. I want that so badly, and I think fans would go cuckoo bananas for it as well. And again, we've gotten glimpses of it. Mon Mothma was in Ahsoka. Genevieve O'Reilly was there, you know, and
yeah.
Kazuto Xiono's
Yeah.
dad was in Ahsoka. Like, that's
Yeah.
wild. So I don't know. That prospect excites me, and I hope we delve further. Sarah, what are you most excited for in the next year?
I think I'm most excited for two books specifically. I will say books in general. But the two books I'm most excited for are coming out in July. And they are Eyes Like Stars, which is the YA romance novel from an author that I love, Ashley Poston. And of course, Edge of the Abyss by Rebecca Roanhorse, which I have been literally jumping up and down about since it was announced as her writing a book in this series. So because she is also an author that I really, really love. So I think those are the things that I have my eye on the most right now. But I hope that there's an announcement that hasn't even been made yet that we don't even know about that will be coming out in the next year that is like even more exciting.
Yeah. No, I'm very, very excited for both of those. I like that Eyes Like Stars is going to be the beginning of a new type of genre storytelling for Star Wars books, like very, very niche
Yeah.
genres. So I love that. Edge of the Abyss, definitely my number one. Legacy, I'm excited to get like another post TLJ pre-Tross story with Rey and Kylo and Leia. I think that has potential to be very, very good, and to expand that story a bit more with some characters that we've missed. Aside from the ones that you've mentioned, I think I'm most excited for Chris Kempshaw's new book,
Yes.
Star Pilots, which we never officially talked about this on the podcast quite yet as news, but I want to read the log line here because I think it's fascinating. So it's Wedge confronted death countless times in battles large and small, where split-second decisions often meant the difference between survival and a fiery demise. Now he tells a story, and those are the brave pilots he served with and elite enemies he fought against. Aided by unsealed archives from the New Republic and unreleased interviews of Imperial and Alliance veterans, Antilles gives a definitive account of what it was to fight the Galactic Civil War from the cockpit of a starfighter. The ships, tactics, and weapons, but also the quiet times and camaraderie and moments of fear and despair, the thrill of victory and the aching loss of friends. This is the untold story of the galaxy's star. Now, that is a goddamn log line. That is so good.
Star Pilots, yeah.
Yeah, I love the rise and fall of the Galactic Empire. I think it's one of the best
Yes.
pieces of Star Wars books to ever come out. Firmly, I think it's the definitive telling of the rise and fall of the Galactic Empire. It's what the title is, but like, it is so detailed. I just can't believe he put this book together. And so to now
Yeah.
get that from the side of the rebels fighting as pilots, and considering the pilots who blew up both the Death Stars, considering the pilots that you and I love potentially within the New Republic, like the Kazuto Xionos, like the Jarek Yeagers, and also like the Alphabet Squadrons. Like, there's just so much potential with this book, and I think we're gonna love it.
Yeah. You read that and I go, I had to Google. I literally go, did Wedge Antilles know Will Lark?
He's got it. He's got it.
Yeah, he's got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Will Lark, Chris Kempshall, please blink twice if Will Lark is in this book. No, I also think this is gonna be really, really interesting because there's a certain straightforwardness about the rise and fall, and maybe what we'd expect a historian to be like, a historian to write an in-person history about, right? Okay, you know, this is within his niche as a historian in the real world, and of course this is maybe the biggest story in all of Star Wars is the Galactic Empire, especially on the heels of, you know, the Andor era, right? Like, oh, what else would he write about? And then Kristen Baver wrote the history of the Skywalker family, which is kind of the first entry into these sort of books, and then we have the book that's like 100 Star Wars objects. That's like as if it were a museum, like an exhibit book from a museum that talks about the objects in context of Star Wars. But this is like something a little different. I think it's so interesting to me that it's being told from the perspective of Wedge. And, you know, he obviously lives through all these moments. And so for him to be so prolific as a pilot and also for him to live through multiple eras, I think this has the opportunity to be like really interesting and pull in a lot of names that we've heard in maybe mentioned only once, you know, in a Star Wars story.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that like the archives have been unsealed from the New Republic. So maybe we can get comm chatter or these sorts of things like audio recordings potentially inserted into here to like talk about the psyche of the pilots as they're going on these missions. Maybe you can have like mission logistics. Like I like there's a lot here that is really, really intriguing. And I know I have no doubt or concern about Chris Kemshall's ability to make this book fantastic. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you brought that one up because I think that that's going to be just really interesting too, because I think it's going to be like a really interesting portrait of all of these successes, but a lot of grief because grief comes in war too.
Yeah, totally.
So.
It has the ability to go deep. And
yeah,
I think this and Edge of the Abyss are my top two anticipated books of the year. So I do want to give an honorable mention as well to just Star Wars video games. I know Fortnite is having a bit of a go right now with Star Wars
with Brad
completely
playing it right now.
Yeah, I've
with
been
the rubber band on his controller
to get more
right
credits. Yeah, I'm addicted
now?
to Droid Tycoon. I'm so in it. I'm so locked in. But it's really cool to see that have a resurgence there. A lot of fan creations making, you know, kind of Battlefront-esque sort of experiences. And Galactic Racer and Star Wars Zero Company, I think, are two games that are at the top of my radar. Obviously, I loved Episode 1 Racer from the N64 days. And so Galactic Racer, they just announced it's coming in October. The trailer, the speed racing, it looks fast as hell. And it's exactly the type of adrenaline rush that I want in a video game. So I can't wait for that. Zero Company, I know, is a turn-based game, but they seem to be so far really emphasizing the story of this cast of characters. And so I don't necessarily want to turn that game away just because it is a genre that I'm not typically used to. I probably will end up giving it a try. It looks cool though. The characters seem pretty cool so far. So I'm excited.
The characters seem really cool. Yeah. I'm not super actively playing video games these days, which is a shame. But it's just kind of my lifestyle at this point. But I am always interested to see what the next video game is going to give us because Star Wars games have been integral to my experience of enjoyment of Star Wars, especially growing up. So, and oh God, and Star Wars games they're always so good. They're always so good. So I'll be really curious to see what both of these have in store. And I might have to come to your house if we can play split screen Galactic Racer and we will race on the equivalent of Star Wars Rainbow Road.
Heck yeah. Do we have a Jedi 3 in our future announcement? Is Cal Kestis and Marin returning?
Yeah. It's how they are. They've got that franchise is so popular and for good reason. Those games are excellent. I think they've got to.
I would venture we hear about it in the next year. If not,
I hope so.
At a video game showcase coming up in the next several months. Celebration. I remember Chicago getting that Fallen Order panel. That was very, very exciting.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
Isn't there also a couple of other games in development that are, you know, way further out but have been announced and are still in movement?
I believe there is
I think there's like one or two.
Well, I know there's Eclipse, which like candidly I just reject on principle because I know that
Right.
studio has had its fair share of really problematic behavior. So I kind of reject that and refuse to acknowledge it. But aside from that,
it does exist. But
it does exist. Yeah,
it does exist. But that's it.
we know there's a Knights of the Old Republic remake that has been kind of up in the air.
Okay.
I believe it's I don't remember who it's being made by, but that's been talked about. And then there's Fate of the Old Republic, which was announced at the Game Awards with that cinematic trailer. And that's going to be a new experience as like a kind of spiritual successor to KOTOR. So we get the KOTOR remake and the spiritual successor to KOTOR. That's exciting. So I think those are the two that most folks are itching to learn more about at this point. Well, Sarah, I know we've been talking for about just over an hour here. We will probably have more to talk about tomorrow on May the 4th. Hopefully some exciting announcements. I know there's been some rumors swirling.
There have been some rumors swirling.
Yeah, potential projects. So we'll see.
Are the people lying to us, or do they know something?
So we'll know more tomorrow. And again, as we mentioned, we'll probably, depending on the juiciness of tomorrow, hopefully be back on our Patreon talking about some of the latest news. But any final thoughts to close out this May 4th day of 2026?
I would just like to say thank you. Thank you, Brad, for being my friend and for doing this podcast with me. And I'm so grateful that, all throughout the year, not just today, we get to celebrate Star Wars and get to have great conversations about Star Wars. And I'm also just grateful to anyone who is taking the time out of their day to join us in these conversations, whether it be on your commute or while you're doing laundry or while you're hanging about or whatever, like working out. Like, thank you for joining us. Like, I even as our social media landscape is all over the place and as difficult as the world is at this point in so many ways, I feel a lot of gratitude to these momentary escapes of Star Wars and the joy that they bring us. And I'm grateful for both the memories of the past and for what's to come. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about Star Wars. I'm feeling good about myself in Star Wars. I'm feeling good about this friendship. Thanks for being my friend. That's it. That's what I'd like to say. Thank you. What about you?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just excited that again we're turning a page in the Star Wars book. A lot of unknowns at this point, but also just a lot to look forward to. Again, I'm just so excited to experience Star Wars in the theater with you and our friends, and sharing that experience, talk about it in the car afterwards, talk about it over dinner. And I think Celebration 50, I hope, is going to be one of the best celebrations that we've had so far. I think it's going to be probably, I don't know if we'll live to see Star Wars 100. We'll see. I hope so. That would be sad if I didn't.
I was thinking, how old are we? We're going to live till Star Wars 100.
Yeah, I think
Will the franchise be around at Star Wars 100? I hope so.
That's the question. Is it just all going to be AI slop by that point? Who knows?
No. I reject our Wall-E future,
I hope so. But I think there's just a lot to be looking forward to. Again, amidst the daily horrors that persist. But we must find joy where we can, and hope that least of all is not stripped away from us. So thank you for being here talking about Star Wars on Star Wars Day. Thank you all for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it and hope to it was a cool hang just to talk about Star Wars in the past and the future and how they must split and combine. If you know. But that is all for today. You can find us.
It's been a minute.
You can find us on all of our socials, including Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky, wherever you listen to the podcast. Make sure you're subscribed for future episodes and drop us a review. Our last review was about 2 years ago on Apple Podcasts.
It's time.
So if you really have an extra couple minutes in your day, you really wouldn't mind. That would mean the world to us if you leave us a review. Let us know what you like about the show. Because it really means a lot and it helps us give feedback on what we do best. So thank you again for tuning in.
Yes, and a thank you to our patrons as well. They are Andy, Brian, Cheryl, Clay, Emma, Ian, Jennifer, Josephine, Katie, Knights of Ren, Krista, Logan, Lindsay, Matthew, Mark, Nicole, Rob, Ruth, Stana, Sky Talkers, Tom, and Viglyph. Thank you very, 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 very much for your support. Thank you to everyone for being a friend of the Force. I hope that everyone is doing well this spring. Take your allergy meds. Watch a Mando and Grogu trailer, stay hydrated, engage in the community, go on a walk. These are all the things I have to say. Thank you. These are the things I will be doing.
All great things. Yeah, stay hydrated most importantly. It's getting hot out there. So
that's right.
Thank you all once again for listening. And until next time, may the Force be with you always.
Bye.